My name is Alara Vance, and I'm 29 years old. For 3 years, a self-imposed silence was the wall I built between my past and my present. I carved out a life for myself as a software engineer in Portland, a world away from my family's historic Philadelphia brownstone and the dazzling orbit of my sister, Serafina. Then a single phone call shattered my carefully constructed peace. My parents were gone, lost in a car accident, and their attorney needed my presence for the reading of the will. My first instinct was to refuse. What could possibly be the point? I was sure they had signed away their world to Sierra years ago. At least, that's what I had been led to believe. Before I take you into that mahogany-paneled law office where my life pivoted on a single sentence, let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from. And if you want to follow this journey of uncovering the truth, be sure to subscribe. Growing up in one of Philadelphia's most prestigious neighborhoods, I never lacked for anything material. My parents, Richard and Catherine Vance, had sculpted Vance Legacy Holdings into a real estate empire that dominated the East Coast. Our magnificent 5-story brownstone overlooked a lush, private park, a picture of old money perfection. We had everything that was supposed to signal a happy family. But behind the polished oak doors, the family hierarchy was an unspoken law. Serafina, 2 years my senior, was the sun around which our family universe revolved. She was the chosen one, the star, the designated heir. It began in subtle ways. At Christmas, Sierra would unwrap the designer doll she'd coveted for months, while I'd receive a set of advanced encyclopedias my parents believed would nurture my intellect. Sierra's birthday parties were legendary affairs, complete with professional magicians and pony rides in the park. Mine were quiet gatherings in the kitchen, with a simple store-bought cake and a handful of school friends. "We're just honoring your different natures, darling," my mother would explain with a thin smile when I questioned why Sierra's 10th birthday involved renting out an entire museum wing, while mine was just pizza and a movie. "Sierra thrives on social energy. You've always been more of an observer." That was the catch-all explanation. Different personalities, different needs. In 3rd grade, I won a statewide mathematics competition, solving problems meant for students twice my age. My parents made an appearance but slipped out before the awards ceremony to catch the start of Sierra's ballet recital. "It's just a numbers contest, Alara," my father said later. Sierra's troupe was depending on her. When I brought home a report card filled with straight A's, the reaction was a dismissive, "That's what we expect from you, Alara." But when Sierra scraped by with a B- in history after weeks of tutoring, my parents treated her to a lavish, celebratory dinner at the city's most exclusive restaurant. "You have to understand, your sister finds academics a struggle," my mother explained when I pointed out the disparity. "We must encourage her effort." So I dove deeper into my studies, convinced that if I became truly exceptional, they would have no choice but to see me. I joined every academic team, entered every science fair, and graduated as valedictorian. During my speech, I scanned the crowd and saw my parents discreetly checking their watches. Sierra had a charity polo match that afternoon. MIT offered me a partial scholarship. When I asked my parents for help with the remaining tuition, they refused. "A business degree would be far more sensible," my father insisted. "You could find a place at the family company." "But I want to study computer science," I argued. "Green technology is the future." My mother's expression hardened. "Alara, we've been over this. Serafina is going to Wharton. She will be the one to eventually lead Vance Legacy Holdings. You need to accept your role in this family." It was the first time they had said it so bluntly. Sierra was the heir. I was the spare. The decision had been made before I even understood the game. I funded my own education with student loans and a patchwork of part-time jobs. I survived on instant noodles and shared a cramped apartment with 3 other students, and I thrived. By my senior year, top tech firms were vying to hire me. I chose a forward-thinking green tech company in Portland, as much for the professional challenge as for the thousands of miles it put between me and Philadelphia. I built a new life there. I found friends who became my family, climbed the corporate ladder on my own merits, and discovered a sense of self-worth that had nothing to do with my last name. Then came my cousin Olivia's wedding 3 years ago. It was an event I couldn't sidestep. My parents insisted I stay in the family home. "We never see you anymore," my mother lamented over the phone. "Is it so much to ask that you spend a few days with your family?" The night before the wedding, at a glittering family foundation gala, everything imploded. My father tapped his champagne flute for attention, his face beaming. "We have a special announcement," he declared to the assembled guests. "As you know, Vance Legacy Holdings is stronger than ever. As we expand, it's time to secure our future leadership. We are thrilled to announce that Serafina will be joining the company as executive vice president, with the full intention of succeeding me as CEO upon my retirement in 5 years." The room erupted in applause. Sierra offered a practiced, modest smile, but her eyes, when they met mine across the room, were gleaming with triumph. "What about Alara?" my Aunt Clara asked from a nearby table. "Will she have a role?" My mother gave a light, dismissive laugh. "Oh, Alara has her tech world in Portland. She's made it quite clear she has no interest in our line of work." I sat there, frozen in my chair. They had never once asked me, never considered that I might want a place in the legacy my grandfather built. They had spent years grooming Sierra while telling me to be realistic. I excused myself and sought refuge in the quiet of the library. My father found me there. "You know this was always the way it was going to be," he said, his tone not unkind. "Sierra has the personality for this world, the charm, the connections. You're brilliant, Alara, but you're too intense, too analytical. This business is built on relationships. Your sister feels the market, you'd analyze it to death." "You never gave me a chance to feel it," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "You decided when we were children that she was the heir and I was the backup plan, and you've spent your life proving yourself right." My father's face hardened. "That attitude is precisely why you wouldn't fit in. You take everything far too personally." "This is family business," I retorted. "How can it be anything but personal?" That was the last real conversation I ever had with him. The next day, I wore a polite mask at the wedding. The day after, I flew back to Portland and blocked my parents' numbers. 3 years of blessed silence followed, 3 years of building a life free from the weight of their judgment, until the call from Mr. Finch, the family lawyer. He informed me that Richard and Catherine Vance had died when their car skidded on an icy patch of road, and that I was required to be present for the reading of the will. The gala that severed my ties with my family wasn't just about the business announcement. It was the final crack in a foundation that had been crumbling for a lifetime. After my father told me I lacked the right stuff in the library, Sierra appeared in the doorway, a glass of champagne in hand. "Don't be so dramatic, Ellie," she said. using the childhood nickname she knew I despised. "It's not like this is a shock." "I was actively pushed away from the company," I replied, "while you were interning there since you were a teenager." She rolled her eyes. "You were always lost in your little coding projects. You never showed any real interest." "It's hard to show interest when you're told it's not your strength," I shot back. "It's hard to compete when the race is fixed from the start." Sierra sighed, a picture of put-upon patience. "Look, we all have our strengths. Mine is people and business. Yours is computers. It is what it is." Dad nodded in agreement. "Serafina has been preparing for this her whole life. She has the right network, the right education." "Because you gave her those things," I said, my voice rising. "You sent her to etiquette classes and exclusive club events. You introduced her to your associates. You took her to construction sites. You never once gave me the same opportunities." My mother had glided into the room by then. "Ilara, please, you're causing a scene. This is Serafina's night. Can't you just be happy for your sister?" That was the family mantra, be happy for Sierra. Don't upstage Sierra. Don't make it about you. I looked at the three of them, my father annoyed, my mother concerned only with appearances, and Sierra smugly victorious. Something inside me finally shattered. "I'm leaving," I said quietly. "Don't be absurd," my mother said. "The wedding is tomorrow." "I'll be there. I'll smile for the pictures. And then I'm done. I am done pretending to be part of this family when I've been nothing more than a footnote to all of you." "Now you're just being immature," my father snapped. "No," I replied. "For the first time, I'm being honest. You've made your choice. Sierra gets it all, the company, the praise, this house. Fine, she can have it. But she doesn't get to have me, too. I'm not sticking around to be a spectator at the Serafina show any longer." I walked out of that library and up to my old room. The next day, I performed my duties as a bridesmaid with cold precision. The day after, I was on a plane back to Portland. My mother left a series of tearful voicemails. My father sent a curt email about needing time to cool off. Sierra sent a single text. "Way to make everything about you, as usual." I changed my number and set up email filters that sent their messages to a digital black hole. My friend Maya became my anchor in Portland. Her family welcomed me for holidays. Her husband, Patrick, introduced me to mountain climbing, a passion that taught me to rely on my own strength. I built a chosen family, people who valued me for who I was, not who they wanted me to be. News from home would sometimes trickle in. A mutual acquaintance mentioned Sierra's big promotion. An old classmate congratulated me on a new development project my parents had launched. I would nod politely and steer the conversation elsewhere. The most bizarre discovery came during a tech conference in San Francisco. I ran into my mother's cousin, who looked at me with a mixture of pity and discomfort. "Your parents told everyone you'd moved on," she said. "They said you found the family business too restrictive, that you needed to forge your own path without the burden of their expectations. Catherine said you were fiercely independent, and they were just respecting your wishes." They had rewritten history to cast themselves as benevolent parents, graciously letting their wayward daughter find herself. I laughed a bitter, hollow laugh in my hotel room that night. Of course, anything to maintain the illusion of the perfect family. When my Aunt Clara called to tell me about the accident, my first feeling was a profound, hollow numbness where grief was supposed to be. "They were coming home from their 35th anniversary dinner," she said, her voice choked with tears. The roads were slick with ice. Richard lost control on a turn. They were gone instantly. "I'm so sorry," I said, the words feeling automatic and foreign. "The funeral is on Saturday," she continued. "Serafina is making the arrangements. She wasn't sure if you'd want to be involved." Of course, she wasn't. Sierra had probably relished having our parents all to herself for 3 years. "I'll book a flight," I said, the words surprising me as much as they did her. 2 days later, the call came from Mr. Finch. "Miss Vance," he said, his voice formal and grave. "I am the Vance family attorney. I understand you'll be in Philadelphia for the funeral. We will require your presence for the reading of the will on Monday morning." "Is that really necessary?" I asked. "I assume everything is going to Serafina." There was a distinct pause. "It would be very much in your best interest to attend," he said, his tone precise. "There are matters that concern you directly." I almost said no. What was the point of prolonging the agony? But something in his voice, a note of careful intention, sparked my curiosity. "Fine," I said. "Monday morning." I didn't know then that Monday would unravel everything. That the carefully woven narrative of my family was about to come undone. That the truth my parents had buried for decades would finally surface. And that I would walk into that law office and watch my sister's triumphant smile dissolve as her entire world fell apart. Landing in Philadelphia felt like traveling through time. The familiar silhouette of the city, the specific cadence of the cab driver's speech, the crisp quality of the winter air, it all unleashed a flood of memories. I had politely declined Aunt Clara's offer to stay at the family home, opting instead for the quiet comfort of my friend Maya's parents, the Patels, who still lived in a nearby suburb. They greeted me with gentle sympathy, offering a space to navigate my tangled emotions. "You stay as long as you need, dear," Mrs. Patel said, showing me to their guest room. "We always thought of you as one of our own." I thanked her, my throat tight. The Patels had shown me more genuine warmth over the years than my own parents, attending my science fairs when my parents were at Sierra's recitals. The day before the funeral, I drove through my old neighborhood. I passed the imposing brownstone, its windows dark and silent. A pang, not of longing but of unresolved history, went through me. I ended up at an independent bookstore cafe, The Last Word, where I used to spend hours studying. It was almost unchanged. The same scent of old paper and fresh espresso, the same cozy armchairs. As I waited for my tea, a voice called out, "Ilara, is that really you?" I turned to see Megan Riley, my old high school lab partner. We were never close, but always friendly. "Megan, hi," I said, returning her hug. "I'm good. I teach chemistry back at our old high school. Can you believe it?" Her expression shifted to one of concern. "I was so sorry to hear about your parents. It's just terrible." "Thank you," I murmured. She hesitated. "I have to admit I was surprised to hear you were coming back, after everything." I frowned. "What do you mean?" Megan looked uneasy. "Oh, after you left. Your parents said you'd sort of moved on from family life. Serafina mentioned you were all about your tech career and didn't really look back." She lowered her voice conspiratorially. "There were even rumors you had some kind of breakdown after college, that you couldn't handle the pressure of the family business." My tea was ready, giving me a moment to compose myself. When I turned back to Megan, my voice was cool. "An interesting version of the story." Sensing she'd overstepped, Megan backpedaled. Well, you know how people talk. I'm sure it was all blown out of proportion. I'm sure, I agreed. It was good to see you, Megan. I left the cafe, my hands clenched. A breakdown. Couldn't handle the pressure. I had graduated with honors from MIT and was a senior engineer at a rapidly growing tech firm. Meanwhile, Sierra had been handed a vice presidency on a silver platter. My next stop was the family estate. I needed to see my parents' final resting place before the public spectacle of the funeral. They were interred in a private mausoleum on the grounds, a small, elegant stone structure near a grove of ancient trees. The fresh flowers laid at the entrance were roses, my mother's favorite. I stood there, waiting for a wave of grief, but all I felt was a mix of anger, regret, and a profound loss for the relationship we never managed to build. I wish you had seen me, I whispered to the cold stone. The real me. Oh, they did, in the end. I spun around. An elderly woman stood there. It took me a moment to recognize Alina Rossi, my parents' housekeeper for over 30 years, who had been more of a grandmother to me than anyone. Alina, I breathed, stepping forward to hug her. Her familiar scent of lavender and starch brought unexpected tears to my eyes. My dear girl, she said, patting my back. I've missed you. What did you mean? They saw me in the end. I asked as we sat on a nearby bench. Alina looked toward the mausoleum. Your father! He changed in these last few months. He was always in the study, looking through old photo albums, watching home videos of you as a little girl. He kept muttering that he'd made terrible mistakes. I swallowed hard. Did he try to reach out? He told me he did, Alina replied. But he said your number was disconnected. He sent letters. I never got any letters, I said, a knot forming in my stomach. Alina's brow furrowed. That's odd. He gave them to Serafina to mail. She said she had your most current address. A chill went down my spine. Sierra told him that. Yes. She told them you moved around a lot for work in Portland, that it was best to send everything through her. I hadn't moved once in 3 years. My address was public record on my company's website. Alina, I asked, a sudden thought striking me. Did my parents change their will recently? She looked surprised. I couldn't say for sure, dear, but your father was meeting with Mr. Finch quite often before the accident. I once overheard him on the phone, saying something had to be made right. Driving back to the Patel's house, my mind was a whirlwind. Had my parents really had a change of heart? Had Sierra been intercepting their attempts to connect with me? On an impulse, I turned down my old street and parked across from the brownstone. The lights were on. As I watched, a car pulled into the driveway. Sierra got out, followed by her husband, Julian. They were laughing as they walked toward the door. Just before going inside, Sierra paused and looked directly toward my car. Even from a distance, I saw her smile vanish. She said something to Julian, who glanced over with a frown. Then they disappeared inside. That night, sleep was impossible. Alina's words echoed in my mind. He kept saying he'd made terrible mistakes. I dug through my suitcase and found the one family photo I had kept, a picture from a trip to the Italian Alps when I was 12. We were all on a mountain overlook, smiling, the wind in our hair, my father's arm around me. I stared at the man in the photo, trying to reconcile him with the man who told me I wasn't cut out for his world. Then my eyes caught something in the background, a sign for a ski resort. Vance Vista. I'd forgotten. It was my grandfather's first major project, the one that launched the company. Why did that feel so important? I couldn't place it, but the thought nagged at me as I finally drifted into a restless sleep. The next day was the funeral. The day after, I would sit in Mr. Finch's office and find out exactly what my father meant by making things right. The funeral was a masterclass in social theater. Philadelphia's elite gathered to pay their respects. Sira delivered a flawless, tearful eulogy about our incredibly close-knit family and how our parents had always encouraged both their daughters to follow their unique passions. I sat in the front row, a statue of polite neutrality, as she rewrote our history. I accepted condolences, avoided my sister, and left as soon as I could. That evening, Mr. Finch called. "Miss Vance, I was hoping you might come to my office tomorrow morning before the 11 o'clock reading. There are some things I'd like to discuss with you privately." "What sort of things?" I asked, wary. "It's best we discuss it in person," he replied. "Shall we say 9:00?" I agreed, my curiosity piqued. The next morning, I arrived at his law firm. The office was a sanctuary of old leather, polished wood, and the faint scent of lemon oil. Alastair Finch, a man in his late 60s with kind blue eyes and silver hair, had been my family's lawyer forever. "Alara," he said, shaking my hand. "Thank you for coming. Please sit." Once I was settled, he took off his glasses. "I wanted to speak with you alone because the events of the official reading may come as a shock to certain parties. I felt it was only fair to prepare you." "Prepare me for what?" I asked. "I'm not expecting anything." "That is precisely why we're talking," he said. He opened a file. "Are you familiar with the terms of your grandfather's original trust for Vance Legacy Holdings?" I shook my head. "My grandfather died when I was a baby. I only know he started the company." "Jonathan Vance was an extraordinary man," Mr. Finch said. "He started with nothing but a small resort project in the Alps, Vance Vista." The photo, a flicker of understanding sparked within me. "Your grandfather established a trust to govern the company after his death. Your father was the trustee and CEO, but under very specific conditions regarding succession." He slid a document across the desk. I scanned the dense legal text until a paragraph seized my attention. Upon the retirement or death of Richard Vance, control of Vance Legacy Holdings and all associated assets shall pass to the heir who demonstrates the qualities Jonathan Vance valued: integrity, innovation, financial acumen, and a commitment to ethical practices. This determination shall be made by the trustee based on an objective evaluation of all potential heirs. I looked up, stunned. "This says nothing about the oldest child." "Correct," Mr. Finch confirmed. "Jonathan believed in merit, not birthright. He wanted the company led by whoever best embodied his values. Your father knew this, of course. But over time, he and your mother formed their own ideas. They decided Serafina's personality was a better fit." The familiar sting of that old judgment returned. "So they groomed her for it." "Yes, but about 6 months ago your father came to me. He was troubled. He brought this." He handed me a sealed envelope. "He asked me to give this to you personally." With trembling hands, I opened it. It was a letter in my father's handwriting. Ilara asterisk. "If you are reading this, then I am gone, and I have failed to say this to you in person. That is my failing. I let my pride get in the way of reaching out after our fight. I have been following your career from a distance. The innovation at your company, your ethical approach to your work, the success you have built entirely on your own merit. You are your grandfather's granddaughter in every way that counts. Serafina has the social grace your mother and I always prized, but we were wrong. We prioritized charm over character. I have come to see that your sister views the company as an entitlement, not a responsibility. I tried to contact you. I sent letters. I called old numbers. I even drove past your office in Portland last spring, but lost my nerve when I saw you through the window, so confident and successful without us. I am working with Alistair to make things right, to honor your grandfather's true intentions. I hope, one day, you can forgive an old man for not seeing what was in front of him all along. With love and regret, asterisk. Dad. I folded the letter, fighting tears. He tried to contact me, I whispered. Many times, Mr. Finch confirmed. He was deeply distressed when he received no reply. I never got them. Elena said Cira was supposed to mail them. Mr. Finch's jaw tightened. I see. That is disturbing, but not entirely surprising, given what else we've uncovered. He produced another file. After your father's change of heart, we initiated a quiet audit of company operations. We found evidence that Serafina has been making questionable decisions. There are indications she was planning to sell off key assets to a company called Meridian Developments as soon as she gained control. Sell them, but those properties have been in our family for generations. Yes, it appears she had an arrangement with Meridian to acquire several properties at significantly below market value. The CEO of Meridian is, coincidentally, a college friend of her husband, Julian. I leaned back, my head spinning. She was planning to dismantle the company. Not entirely, but to extract a great deal of short-term profit at the expense of its future. He glanced at his watch. The others will be here soon. There's one last thing. Your father amended his will 3 weeks before the accident. The changes are substantial and ironclad. Serafina is not aware of them. As I waited in the conference room for the official reading, my world felt tilted on its axis. My father had seen his mistake. He had tried to fix it. And now, from beyond the grave, he was about to correct a decades-long injustice. At precisely 11:00, I was shown into the main conference room. Cira was already there with Julian, looking regal in a black designer dress and our mother's pearls. Her eyes widened when she saw me. I didn't realize you were staying for this, she said coolly. I thought you'd be rushing back to Portland. Mr. Finch asked me to be here, I replied, taking a seat across from her. Other family members and business associates filed in. Elena slipped in and gave me a small, encouraging nod from a corner chair. At 11:15, Mr. Finch entered. We are gathered for the reading of the last will and testament of Richard and Elena Vance, he began. I must note that this document was amended 3 weeks prior to their passing. The amendment is legally binding. I saw Cira's posture stiffen. This was news to her. Mr. Finch read through minor bequests. Cira relaxed, even smiling when it was announced that she would inherit the family home. Then he came to the business. Regarding Vance legacy holdings, Mr. Finch read, Richard Vance, in his capacity as trustee, conducted a thorough evaluation of potential successors, in accordance with the original trust established by Jonathan Vance. Cira leaned forward, her hand finding Julian's. This evaluation considered business decisions, leadership qualities, ethical standards, and innovative vision, Mr. Finch continued. Based on this evaluation, and in accordance with Jonathan Vance's explicit wish that the company be led by the heir who best exemplifies its founding values, Richard Vance determined that controlling interest in Vance Legacy Holdings and all associated assets shall pass to. Mr. Finch paused, looking directly at my sister, Alara Catherine Vance. The room fell utterly silent. Sierra's face was a mask of disbelief. "There's a mistake," she stammered. "There is no mistake, Miss Vance," Mr. Finch said calmly. "Your father was very clear." "This is absurd," Julian interjected. "Serafina has dedicated her life to this company. Alara hasn't even spoken to the family in years." "That is addressed in the addendum," Mr. Finch said, turning a page. "Richard Vance notes that despite her physical distance, Alara has demonstrated superior business acumen, growing her division's value at her tech firm from $10 million to $250 million. Her ethical and innovative approach more closely aligns with Jonathan Vance's core principles." Sierra's face was ashen. "When was this signed? Dad was under a lot of stress. He wasn't himself." "The amendment was executed 23 days before his death," Mr. Finch replied. "Both your parents were certified to be of sound mind by their physician that same week. Your father was simply fulfilling his duty as trustee." "I don't believe it," Sierra said, her voice rising. "She abandoned this family. She doesn't care about our parents' legacy." "That's not true," I said, my voice clear and steady as I stood up. Everyone turned to look at me. "I didn't abandon the family, Sierra. I was pushed out. And when I tried to find a new way to be a part of it, I was deliberately isolated." "That's a lie," she protested, but her eyes wouldn't meet mine. "Is it?" I countered. "Alina told me Dad sent letters I never received. He made calls to numbers that were supposedly disconnected. Did you know about those letters, Sierra? Did you give him my correct address, or did you tell him I was moving around and that everything had to go through you?" Julian was now staring at his wife with a look of dawning horror. "Serafina." Her composure finally shattered. "I was protecting them. You hurt them when you left." "That wasn't your decision to make," I said quietly. "You stole our chance to reconcile." Mr. Finch cleared his throat. "The will stipulates that Alara Vance will assume the role of Chief Executive Officer of Vance Legacy Holdings, effective immediately. Serafina Vance will retain her current position, subject to a 90-day performance review." Sierra shot to her feet. "This is a travesty. I'm contesting this will." "That is your right," Mr. Finch acknowledged. "However, your father anticipated this. He left a video statement to be played in such an event." He placed a tablet on the table. "Shall I play it?" Sierra hesitated, then gave a stiff nod. "Play it." My father's face filled the screen. He looked tired, but his gaze was resolute. "If you are watching this," he began, "it means Serafina is contesting my decision. I want to be clear. This was made with a sound mind and after long consideration." "Cassie," he said, his voice softening, "I love you. But I have watched with growing concern as you've made decisions that prioritize personal gain over the company's health. The Meridian deal alone shows a willingness to sacrifice our family's legacy for quick profit." Sierra's face drained of all color. "Alara," he continued, looking directly into the camera. "I hope you can forgive an old man's blindness. I should have seen years ago what is so clear to me now. You are your grandfather's true heir. My decision is final. It is legally sound, ethically right, and it secures the future of the company he built." The video ended. The silence in the room was deafening. Finally, Sierra grabbed her purse. "This isn't over," she hissed, her voice trembling with rage. "Come on, Julian." As they left, Julian paused. He turned back to me, his expression pained. "For what it's worth, I didn't know about the letters. That was wrong." After the room cleared, I remained, staring at the dark screen that held my father's last words to me. Elena came and sat beside me. "He was so proud of what you built on your own," she said softly. "What do I do now?" I whispered, the weight of it all finally hitting me. I said slowly, finding my voice, "I'm going to honor my grandfather's legacy. And maybe, just maybe, I can find a way to make peace with my parents' memory, too." The real work was just beginning. But for the first time in a long, long time, I felt a sense of justice. I was finally on the path I was always meant to walk. The day after the will reading, I walked into the headquarters of Vance Legacy Holdings. The receptionist's eyes widened when I announced myself. "Miss Vance, we weren't expecting you." "I decided to get an early start," I said. "Is my sister available?" "Miss Davidson is in an executive meeting," she stammered. "She left instructions not to be disturbed." "I think she'll make an exception," I said firmly. Minutes later, I was standing in the doorway of a boardroom where Sierra sat at the head of the table, surrounded by senior executives. Her eyes flashed with hostility. "We're in the middle of something, Alara." "I can see that," I replied, walking in and taking a seat. "And since it appears to be a strategy meeting for the company I now lead, I'd like to be included." One of the executives, a man I recognized as Marcus Thorne, the CFO, looked between us. "I was under the impression Miss Vance was managing the transition." "There has been a change in plans," I said. "As of yesterday, I am the CEO." Sierra's face flushed. "This is a temporary arrangement, pending a legal challenge." "A challenge you are welcome to pursue," I said calmly. "In the meantime, what was on the agenda?" Marcus cleared his throat. "We were reviewing the proposal from Meridian Developments." "Ah, yes, the Meridian deal," I said, pulling out my tablet. "The one to sell our most valuable waterfront properties for 20% below market value to a company whose CEO happens to be Julian's college roommate. Perhaps you can explain the strategic value in that, Sierra." The room went dead silent. "That's a serious accusation," she seethed. "It's a fact, based on the audit Dad commissioned before he died." She couldn't offer a real defense. The meeting dissolved in awkward silence. When we were alone, she turned on me. "You're going to destroy this company." "That's ironic," I shot back, "coming from the person who was about to sell it off for parts." "Those deals were complicated. You don't understand the nuances." "Then explain them to me," I challenged. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you were getting ready to cash out." Before she could answer, Mr. Finch entered, his expression grim. "I apologize for the interruption. These were in your father's personal safe." He placed a folder on the table. It was filled with emails and financial records detailing a pattern of inflated expense reports, payments to shell companies linked to Julian's family, and secret negotiations with competitors. You weren't just planning to sell assets, I said, the cold truth dawning on me. You were already bleeding the company dry. It wasn't like that, she insisted weakly. Then what was it like? I demanded. Mr. Finch spoke. Miss Vance, these actions constitute a breach of fiduciary duty. Your father was preparing to remove you from the company entirely just before the accident. That revelation hung in the air. The door opened and Julian walked in. The board members are here for the emergency meeting, he announced, then froze when he saw Mr. Finch and the files. What emergency meeting? I asked. Sierra drew herself up. I called a meeting to vote on contesting the will. That won't be necessary, said Marcus Thorne from the doorway, flanked by other board members. We've reviewed the documents Mr. Thornton sent over. The amended will, the audit, all of it. The board has voted unanimously to uphold your father's final wishes. Alara is the CEO, effective immediately. Serafina, your employment is suspended pending a full investigation. Sierra looked around the room and found no friendly faces. This is a coup, she said bitterly. No one is handing me anything, I said. Dad made a choice based on merit. The fact that you were actively betraying his trust only proves he was right. She stormed out, Julian trailing behind her. After she left, the board members formally welcomed me. They confessed they had been worried about the company's direction for some time. That evening, I returned to the family home, my home now. Alina was there. I found something you should see, she said, leading me to my father's study. On his desk was a leather-bound journal. He started writing this after you left, she explained. He said maybe someday you'd read it. I opened it. Page after page was filled with my father's reflections, his growing regret, and his dawning realization of the truth. October 15th saw a feature on Alara's company today. She spoke with such passion and integrity. I saw my own father in her. How could I have been so blind? November 30th. The audit reports are troubling. I fear we have made a terrible mistake with the girls. Jonathan would be ashamed of me. January 10th. Met with Alistair to amend the will. It is the right thing to do. I only hope I have a chance to explain it all to Alara and ask for her forgiveness. The final entry was from 3 days before he died. If you are reading this, Alara, know that your mother and I were so deeply sorry. We let our own biases cloud our judgment. You deserved better. The company is in the best possible hands now, better than it would have been with your sister or even with me. You are Jonathan Davidson's true heir. I hope you can forgive us. Tears streamed down my face. The reconciliation I thought was impossible had been there, waiting. The weeks that followed were a blur. Sierra's legal challenge was swift, but it crumbled when faced with the mountain of evidence against her. To avoid criminal charges, she dropped the lawsuit and agreed to cooperate with the financial investigation. I offered her a demoted position in the company, a chance to prove she could contribute honestly. To my surprise, she accepted. I split my time between Portland and Philadelphia, modernizing Vance Legacy Holdings with the tech-savvy approach I'd been told was a weakness. I launched the Davidson Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to community development and affordable housing, funded by a portion of the company's profits. About 6 months later, Sierra knocked on my office door. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice quiet. "For the letters, for everything, I was scared. My entire identity was tied to inheriting this company. When Dad started praising you, I panicked." It wasn't a full excuse, but it was a start. That evening, at the Foundation's launch event, I stood at the podium. My team from Portland was there, the board members, even Sierra, sitting quietly in the back. I spoke about my grandfather's belief that success was meaningless without purpose. Later, in my father's study, I looked at the photos on his desk. My grandfather, my parents on their wedding day, and the one I had added, of the four of us smiling in the Alps. "They would be proud," Elena said, squeezing my shoulder. I looked out the window at the glittering Boston skyline. The journey had been wrenching, the revelations painful. But through it all, I had found my way back not just to my family's legacy, but to myself. My father's final words echoed in my mind. "You are your grandfather's true heir." It wasn't about birthright, it was about values. That was the real inheritance. The path ahead was still unfolding, but for the first time, I felt like I was exactly where I was meant to be. Have you ever had a moment where an unexpected turn led you to your true destination? Share your story in the comments below. Thank you for walking this road with me.